Hey guys, my name is Noah. This is my Lightning Talk 4, and I just want to say thank you for taking time to watch this video. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of yours later in the week. So diving right in, this is my driving question. How are people in Houston using public transportation, and how does this align with the goals of Metro? If there is a misalignment between low income and high income, low car ownership versus high car ownership, utilization of public transportation, is this by system design or does this correspond to the people who actually want and would use public transportation? So this data set really aims at the very first part of this question. So how are people in Houston using public transportation? And so the rest of the analysis, you would need another data set and some extra research to look into the alignment of goals with Metro. But diving in on how we can look at the utilization of public transportation in Houston. So the data set that we have, it's a survey. It's the one that I went over last time, so you can go back and watch over that video. But in terms of the scope, there's about 130,000 households throughout the U.S., each with a year's worth of travel data. That year is from April 19th, 2016 to April 25th, 2017. Each house was randomly assigned a report day every week. So a seventh from the sample were on Monday, a seventh on Tuesday, a seventh on Wednesday, and so on. And they would report all their travel for every person for every trip throughout the entire day. And then the accuracy, it's extremely clean, expecting relatively little to no data cleaning to be done, like taking out nulls and such. Transformations will most likely be needed in the data set. And maybe some minor exclusions for things like, walking to work out, those kind of trips are included. In terms of the pre-processing, it's going to be like a little bit complicated. So the data, as you can see up here in the top right-hand corner, there's 4 different data sheets that were given to me, and they're all related to each other. And so my first task will be to upload these into BigQuery, which is a Google-supported cloud platform for doing SQL. And I'm going to aggregate the data meaningfully, and we're going to talk more about this in a minute because this is my feedback question. And then I'm going to export into a CSV and do some EDA. And that'll involve looking at the distribution of different variables, looking at variance, covariance matrices, and seeing what variables are meaningful to build the personas. Which is really the key part of this analysis is creating a set of personas or clusters that capture the behavior of the general public, which are well separated and easily measurable things like socioeconomic or geographic variables. So basically, after aggregating to some degree, I'm going to want to cluster these into people that utilize in different ways, and then look at easily measurable attributes of these different personas. So, for example, just straight up income, right? And let's say that I have 5 different personas, and they each have an income distribution. The hope would be that income would be a good variable to use in this if there was a pretty solid peak in a different spot for each of the 5, so that I could identify and say, okay, people with this level of income are more likely to be this kind of persona. And doing confidence interval testing through different tracks throughout Houston to assign these personas to understand the utilization. So that will be something that every persona will have calculated, is how often it uses public transportation and the kinds of public transportation or private transportation that it uses. Okay, let me get to the next slide. And so where I'm wanting your input is the aggregation of data from individual trips. So when aggregating data from individual trips by individual people, there are a few different levels that I can go to. The following are my options. So the whole time period or some subset. So 1 record per year versus 1 record per month versus 1 record per week. Or doing, and on top of this, doing the whole household or by a person. So there's some different permutations available here. The goal is to create personas. So having multiple records per household/person seems problematic in terms of the time frame. So 12 records all recording different months would be hard to interpret in clustering analysis. I could do something like, if 7 out of the 12 months are all allocated to this one persona, then organizes that. But also the randomness would be a lot more observable in this. So, it's much more likely that they get like 4 Saturdays and Sundays in a given month than they were to get exclusively Saturdays and Sundays throughout an entire year. And it also seems problematic to generalize each household into a persona when people in the household could utilize very differently. And so a counterexample of just a solo persona household is a multi-generational one that has K through 12 students, a college student, two working parents, and a retired grandparent under one roof. They can all utilize very differently. So the students could utilize buses, parents could be using cars or be walking to work, and the retired grandparent could be using some type of like private busing system. Um, and so my current leaning is aggregating to one record per year per person within the household, which would definitely grow my data set considerably, which is great. Um, and so really what I'm wanting to know from you guys is like, what do you think about this and what would be best in understanding user habits? Um, so yeah, thank you so much for your time. I'm looking forward to your presentations. Have a great weekend, everybody.